It's called Generative Artificial Intelligence and is shaking up big tech. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu and this is The Heat. There are growing concerns about AI-driven chat programs like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Bard. They're capable of producing content from essays to images and could soon transform how we all work. Tech leaders and researchers are calling for AI labs to pause development of the most advanced systems, citing, quote, profound risks to society and humanity. We begin with this report from CGTN's Mark New from San Francisco.
ChatGPT, Google Bard, and Microsoft Copilot. They're all AI-driven chat programs that can almost instantly write everything from papers to poems to multimedia presentations. And AI has undoubtedly entered the world of art and creativity. Here is SketchBot. All it has to do is take my photo and let it go to work. And here it is, Mark, AI sketch Mark. Which one do you like better? AI image art generators, like DALL-E, allow people to create art with just a simple text description. Some AI artwork has already won art contests.
How do we make sure that we are producing the kind of society that we actually want to live in? Do we like the idea of most text and most art online or showing up in various places in the world being produced by artificial intelligence rather than humans?
The speed at which AI is evolving has led more than 1,000 tech leaders and researchers, including Tesla CEO Elon Musk, to call for an immediate pause for at least 6 months on the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4. At the RSA Cybersecurity Conference, where increasing AI cyber attacks are a hot topic, I asked RSA CEO Rohit Ghai whether a moratorium was feasible.
I think the ask for it is drawing attention to the right agenda. Having said that, a moratorium is unlikely to happen because the bad guys are not going to, honor the moratorium, and we don't want to lose time, giving them a head start.
But despite its seemingly superhuman intelligence, AI makes mistakes. Security strategist David Swift of NetEnrich asked Google Bard which countries are on the U.S. government's OFAC list, a list of countries U.S. citizens are generally barred from doing business with.
OFAC is actually run by the U.S., and the U.S. is not on the list of don't do business with this country. And you'll read about hallucinations that's kind of the modern term that people have been talking about, where AI will make up something and it says this is a fact, and it's not. It's a made-up thing.
But a growing number of companies here rely on AI to detect problems and malicious attacks. As RSA CEO Rohit Ghai put it, without good AI, bad AI will take us for a ride.
And that was Mark New reporting, and Mark joins us now from Palo Alto in California. From Kottayam, India, Jibu Elias is an AI ethicist and founder of the Institute for Governance of Frontier Technologies. Here in Washington, D.C., we're joined by Joe Toscano. He is the founder of DataGrade and brings technology literacy to the masses. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And Mark, let me start with you. A lot of people, scientists, technology leaders, are expressing concerns over the development of AI. As we saw in your report there, the impact it could have on us as individuals, on society. And one of those people is Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, often referred to as the godfather of artificial intelligence. He recently resigned from Google, citing what he termed the existential threat posed to humans by artificial intelligence. What are his concerns?
That's right. That sent some shockwaves through the industry. Well, I thought Hinton said something very interesting in his interview with the New York Times. He said that it's hard to see how you could prevent the bad actors from using it for bad things. And I also heard another interesting example when I attended that RSA conference, when one of the world's largest gathering of cryptologists came together to discuss it. And one of the experts, Adi Shamir, a professor at the Weizmann Institute, said at last year's conference, he was convinced that the main impact of AI in security would be on the defensive side, but this year it completely changed his mind due to the recent developments. And he now believes the ability of ChatGPT to use perfect English to connect with people is going to be misused on a massive scale. And he gave an example that's something to think about. Perhaps someone uses generative AI to take to Twitter. It could potentially put out hundreds, thousands of millions of tweets with false information that seem like a normal human. Look at the situation right now with banks. For example, somebody said, I need to take my money out. That tweet says, I need to take my money out from my bank. That could create a bank run like in the situation now. Then there's what I brought up, the hallucinations, where it simply just kind of makes up answers, but you tend to trust that because you think you're just getting a search engine that's so eloquently written. These concerns have led also the White House to take notice, and the chief executive of Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, have all been called to the White House to meet with Vice President Kamala Harris on Thursday.
Mark, what about the companies themselves? I mean, if you look at companies like Google or Microsoft, these are companies at the forefront of AI development. Are they establishing any protocols? Are they taking any precautions to make sure that the technology they're developing is not going to be abused?
Well, all I can say is they're trying. In the early days, it seemed like pretty much people were testing it and sort of beta testing and putting in searches, and then they'd have to see what happened. If something went wrong, they would sort of correct it. So a very reactive form of, putting in safeguards. For example, learning how to make a bomb was prohibited, but people quickly figured out how to sort of create an alter ego and then ask that alter ego how to create these nefarious items like perhaps drug concoctions and bombs and explosives. But if you go online, both companies have extensive websites that are just dedicated to their commitment to responsible AI. And each of them tries to make the point that this AI, begins with a human-created algorithm. So humans are in control of that aspect. And say, for example, in Microsoft's products, when they showed how you can instantly create an email, draft a presentation, you can ask it to create it and draw on your material, and then you're the one that decides when to start or to publish it or to send it. So they really want to put in this idea that a human starts it and a human ends it. But when you take a look at what Dr. Geoffrey Hinton said, he said until last year, Google had been a sort of a proper steward of AI, but then Microsoft came along with the greater developments, and then it forced them to sort of move quickly. And this whole idea of them competing with each other to get the best, sometimes you lose out on safety in the end.
Joe Toscano, great to have you with us on the show. Like Geoffrey Hinton, you also worked at Google, but you left. You resigned your job over ethical concerns. So there you were, right at the coalface. What were your main concerns?
Yeah, so I spent some time consulting for Google, and overarchingly, my biggest concerns was not just within Google, but at the industry at large. And the fact that the industry has outgrown itself. It's grown faster than it was prepared for. And so what that requires in regards to, like you just mentioned, competition from corporate entities, is that you fill holes as fast as possible. And it's not that they're trying to be malicious. That's never been my stance. But it is that they are indirectly going to cause large amounts of harm if we do not have some kind of guardrails within these systems. And no matter how much documentation they put in responsible AI on their websites, there is nothing in place to validate that they are doing what those websites say. At this point, they could be just assumed to be PR statements more than anything.
And Joe, if we look at the impact that AI could have on our lives, there was a report produced by Goldman Sachs, the investment bank, not so long ago, said that there could be something like 300 million jobs which will be taken over by AI in the very near future. In fact, IBM released a statement on Wednesday in which it said that there are thousands of jobs, something like 10% of its workforce, which will not be filled any longer. It will be done by AI. I mean, what kind of an impact is that going to have on us? I mean, it's going to change the way we've lived and, well, literally worked for hundreds of years.
Yeah, whether the jobs are taken or changed or replaced, right? Because maybe not all these jobs are going to be gone. Some jobs may reduce in pay, which will alter the job enough that it will harm people's lifestyle. But then there's also the fact that there's going to be millions and millions of new jobs created that we can't even conceptualize right now. Before the automobile was created, we did not have automotive mechanics, right? Same thing here. We're going to create new jobs. We're going to figure it out. My belief actually is that we're going to hit a period of creative renaissance because these machines are going to allow everyone to activate and participate, build their own businesses around it, creatively inspire new ways of working with the web and with these technologies. But yeah, in the near term, I do think we're going to have a lot of chaos. There's a lot of people scared, and rightfully so.
Joe, just one point. I mean, these new jobs that you talk about that will be created, will it mitigate the effects of the jobs that will be taken over by AI?
Well, I'm not a genie. I can't make the future into any one specific direction.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that I believe we will figure it out, yes.
Jibu, Elias, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us as well. As we heard in the report earlier on, the billionaire Elon Musk, he's been expressing concerns over the development of AI. He is among 1,000 technology leaders who's urging technology labs to pause developing their most advanced systems. Let's listen to part of what Musk had to say.
AI is perhaps more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
So, Musk using some pretty profound terms there, Jibu, civilizational destruction. How big and how serious is the threat?
I think for now we don't have that kind of scenario, but I think there some of the words he said definitely echoes with the larger picture out there, because what we are seeing right now is something we are never prepared for. And one of the reasons Jeffrey Hinton also mentioned in his interview with Technology Review is that these machines are learning faster than humans. It can learn much faster and it can have a bigger impact. So the bigger question here is we are not prepared and we are not at all capable of, at this point, addressing many of the challenges it is posing, whether it's jobs, whether it's things like bias it's been creating, or misinformation, what some people are calling as hallucination and confabulations, these kind of things it's creating. But we are not yet for a Terminator kind of or a Matrix kind of scenario yet. But I think if we put the right guardrails, take correct steps, we won't end up in that situation. But then again, I think the priority and the focus should be more focused on the current state of AI, current problems, rather than putting a lot of emphasis on a future scenario, which we don't know how it will pan out to be.
Jibu, you are in India right now, and India recently received its first chatbot powered by ChatGPT named Lexi. It was launched by the financial technology company Velocity. What can it do, and how is this sort of technology being received in a country like India?
So with AI, India had a clear strategy. I think 5 years ago in 2018, the government came out with a strategy paper, which clearly states that the use of AI by public sector especially will be focused on more on economic development, empowerment, and social inclusion, and things like that. And we have focused on 3 key areas, which are agriculture, healthcare, and education. Now, coming about these chatbots or GPT-backed technology, Lexi is a financial chatbot launched by this company called Velocity. It's an e-commerce firm, and what it does right now, what this chatbot does is provide daily business reports through WhatsApp, through using ChatGPT in its backend. So that is what Lexi is doing. But at the same time, the government has also realized the potential of ChatGPT and things like that, and they've been incorporating these technologies, looking at the possibility of using these technologies to provide better governance, better government services, and how we can bring a lot of solve many of the socio-economic challenges using these kind of tools.
Right, that application of the technology to agriculture in India, which is a massive sector employing millions of people, gives livelihoods to millions of people. I want to get to that in a moment, but Mark New, I want to get back to you. ChatGPT, as we've seen, is able to respond to very complex questions. In fact, recently, GPT-4 was able to ace the uniform bar exam. But how is this technology being embraced by corporations and companies here in the United States?
It's already at ChatGPT-4, which is a major advancement. I think OpenAI claims now it can process up to 25,000 words at a time. That's 8 times more than the original GPT-3. Now, it's able to be used by companies sort of an experimentation process, and they haven't, some of the companies have actually reported using it, but haven't said exactly what they're using it for. Companies like Instacart, Slack, Coca-Cola have all indicated they're incorporated in their operations in some way. As we noted, IBM already said that they plan to replace nearly 8,000 workers over the next 5 years by using some sort of artificial intelligence. Interesting that the advancements on the latest technology, there's an example on their site where they show a hot air balloon picture, and they ask it, if you cut the ropes, what will happen? And it is successfully able to answer now that it's going to float away. So logic being put in, companies may be still trying to figure out what the best way to use it and on.
Joe Toscano, there's also been concern expressed by United States universities about how this technology can be abused. I mean, they've expressed concerns over the fact that students can use this to write their essays, to complete homework assignments. Let's listen to those concerns from two educators in the state of Colorado. Let's listen to what they said.
You could always go hire your older brother or someone. This is cheap. Anyone can do it. You don't have to go find someone, and that's what makes it concerning. What's scary with ChatGPT is how it is super hard to detect with all of the systems that we've used in the past.
Well, I think we're still learning what the potential is and what people might or might not use it for, but I think it's on everybody's radar. I've had the concern of what do you do when a student produces art using AI? I think we're going to create policy that's going to say, okay, we live in a world where this now exists, what do we do with it?
So Joe, you recently wrote a piece in Forbes in which you said that banning AI is like banning calculators in math class. So how should schools and universities respond to this?
I think that they should embrace it. This is a tooling of the future, and if they do not deploy it into their classrooms in some manner, not something that they have to do all the time or teaching consistently every single day, but if they do not deploy it at all, they're doing a disservice to their students. This will be something their students have to work with in the future. There are going to be dangers that need to be addressed, of course, but there always has been with new technologies. And the fact of the matter is, if students are not prepared to work with this, they're not going to be prepared to work in the modern workforce. Some things that they could consider doing that I mentioned in that article you brought up, they could have throttled classrooms, right? A room that either entirely is always internetless or one period a day is internetless or something like that. They need to get more into experiential and project-based learning, things that students cannot create exclusively with ChatGPT. They need to work more creatively rather than focused on a structured curriculum for the industrial era that we have now since moved out of. We need to work with this AI era. We need to move forward. You need to teach your students how to work with this responsibly. And yes, there's going to be faux pas. Yes, you're going to have students that cheat. That's always been there. It's time to move forward and get more creative in how we educate and make it more meaningful to the human in the classroom.
Mark New, something that we often hear is that, despite the threats that we see ahead with AI, there are many people who say, well, look, AI doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotions. But recently, the University of California released a study that compared responses to questions from ChatGPT and from human physicians. They looked at, how these physicians and AI was handling what patients were saying. And the machine scored better on empathy. What does this tell us?
That sounds very surprising when it's doing something that a human is supposed to do better. Well, the UC San Diego, it's interesting because they put those patient questions from the Ask Docs page on Reddit, which then received responses from healthcare professionals, and then they fed those same questions to ChatGPT and found that ChatGPT's quality was rated at 78.5%, while physicians were rated at 22.1%. ChatGPT also rated their higher in empathy with 45.1% compared to the real doctors, 4.6%. So that's a huge difference. But the authors of the study believe their findings show that there's room for doctors to improve their bedside manner, which many people believe in real life that happens, and could help medical professionals, draft responses to patients' questions with more empathy. However, it does not suggest AI is going to replace doctors in that way. But one glaring issue is that the study did not take a look at the accuracy of those responses. So, as we mentioned before, ChatGPT does tend to have hallucinations, so who knows whether they were sort of trying to just provide answers that those people like or not.
Jibu, I want to get back to something you mentioned a moment ago, you know, the real-world application of AI. You were talking about agriculture in India and how it's benefited from AI. Well, there is Kisan GPT. It helps farmers with things like irrigation, with pest control, and with crop cultivation. I mean, how big a game changer is this for India?
So AI is a big game changer, especially in the field of agriculture in India. And as you mentioned before, agriculture is the biggest sector in India. Almost 50% of the population, the workforce is employed in agriculture. Now, there are so many challenges that are rising as a result of climate change and many other factors, such as new kind of pests are coming up. You know, the issues with irrigation, issues with crop recommendation and soil analysis, and many of these things. Now, what AI has done is it has solved some of these problems. For example, pest detection with image recognition tools and many of similar ML programs that has been addressed in many ways. Now, where Kisan GPT, Kisan means farmer, so farmer GPT comes into play is that it acts as it provides information. You know, it's as an interactive way to the farmers. So the farmers can ask questions regarding crop issues, you know, soil analysis or pest detection and things like that. And this app will provide them recommendations and other things. Now, where it gets interesting is that this platform is using regional languages. As you know, India has 22 regional languages and many more unofficial languages, 22 official languages. So by translating this, whatever it gets from GPT, whatever recommendation it provides, and using a translation layer and providing this farmers and interacting with them through voice interface, it is pretty much addressing a huge challenge for these farmers, and many of them are in the very much technologically literate or literate in that manner. So that's where technologies like AI play a critical role. And another area is in giving credits. Many of the farmers in India doesn't use credit cards. So how does a bank assess their credit worthiness to provide them a loan? So they're using AI to figure that out these days as well.
Jibu, what about the application of AI in things like healthcare? There's a Chinese medical imaging company, actually, that's using AI to eradicate tuberculosis in South Africa. Let's listen to how this works.
So the AI, what it does, it reads the chest X-ray image, and then it's able to read across the different scales of gray. And so it is able to see beyond the human eye. Once the software receives the images, it reads the images, and then it tells automatically where the TB infection is located, whether in the right or left side of the lung.
So, Jibu, what is the potential for this kind of technology in healthcare?
So this is one of the factors about AI that excites me a lot, like the ability to solve many challenges. Now, coming to an Indian perspective or from an Asian or African perspective, there are areas where you have a shortage of primary healthcare or primary diagnostic facilities or even doctor as well. So these kind of tools and technologies can provide that initial diagnosis, and then provided it finds detected some problems, the patient can go and get checked in a bigger city. I'm talking about people in rural India or rural Africa or the rural parts in the global south. Now, we have seen similar examples in India as well. There's a startup called Niramai, which has created a non-invasive thermal imaging-based breast cancer diagnostic tool, which has been doing some phenomenal work. They've been actually also expanded to other markets outside India as well. Similarly, there's a tool called eParway, which looks into cataract. In India, you get only one eye doctor, 200,000 people. So there's a severe shortage. Now, what this program does is you can put it on a phone, you can take the pictures of eye, and it will tell you what is the rate of cataract, and then they can seek treatment. So this is what exciting about this kind of technology, to replace that primary screening facilities. I'm not saying it will replace doctor, but that early step can be, early detection can be done with this technology.
Right, so it's not all bad news. Joe, in Mark's report at the beginning of the show, he was talking about Twitter and Facebook and, how these social media platforms can be abused. I mean, it is a major concern, as we've seen here in the United States, over the misuse of these platforms, the spread of fake news, as it's called. Is there any way to control this sort of dissemination of misinformation or disinformation?
At this point in history, there are concepts being explored. Things that can, for example, track to see different patterns within the content, to see if it was actually created by one of these generative platforms, watermarks and metadata, trademarks that can sit in the back end of content, things like that. But as of today, there is nothing set in stone that we know can corral this with absolute certainty or 100% accuracy. We can be confident, the only thing we can really be confident of is that this misinformation, disinformation is going to proliferate, and it's going to be at an exponential scale. And whether it is the citizen day-to-day or it is members of the intelligence community, we need to be prepared to understand that maybe as high as 50 or 60% of content we start seeing can be fake or faked of some sort, right? It may be real content, it may be turned into something else that we didn't think of originally or didn't know about. We may have to trace down the root sources. It's going to be harder and harder to trust the information in front of our face until we figure something out.
Mark, now here's something that will interest us personally, and that is our jobs as journalists. I mean, what kind of an impact is AI going to have in the news business?
That's a great question, and it certainly affects us. I think since ChatGPT is all about writing in text, that it does strike some fear in journalists about their jobs and whether they're going to be done better by AI in the future. I've heard of some newsrooms experimenting with it right now, and of course the new generation of apps are always trying to figure this out. But ChatGPT and generative AI has to work with existing facts. It might be great at taking wire copy and then sort of regurgitating it, but that's not original reporting. So it doesn't have the ability to go out and get facts and do interviews, at least not yet. So I'd say a human touch in journalism is a long way from being replaced. And then there's the hallucination of facts problem, which the guests have referred to, since it has a tendency to make things up. You're still going to need a human editor to sort of check what it's done, and it may be more tedious to try and ask ChatGPT, where did you come up with that fact? How did you come up with that sentence? Sometimes good old-fashioned human conversation trumps all.
Well, we're already seeing concerns being expressed, Mark. The Hollywood writers are on strike right now, and one of their concerns, one of the reasons they're going on strike, is they want to get some kind of assurances that their jobs are not going to be taken over by AI, the writing jobs or perhaps the rewriting of scripts.
I've used it before to try and write creative scripts and poems and things like that. So it can do that sort of creative work. And I've seen it, somebody say, write a commercial about Tesla or something, and it really did it in a very creative way. So that seems to be a great fear. You can tell it to write a poem in 10 sentences or really put the parameters, but it's not quite as good, and it can come up with flaws. So, but I think in that creative aspect, it's almost more fearful because it can make things up, and it has that ability, as opposed to journalism where it just needs to come up with new facts.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That is all the time we have. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and thank you for watching.
Introducing CGTN Now. Find award-winning documentaries and exclusive content from around the world. Latin America like you've never seen. Breakthrough films shining a light on important stories. In-depth discussions with fascinating people. Giving you new perspective on topics that matter. You also get live round-the-clock international news and headlines and so much more. Original content from CGTN's Global Bureau. Download the CGTN Now app and find the global perspective you've been missing. Available on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. Or go to cgtnnow.com on your tablet or mobile device. CGTN Now. See the difference.
360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.